G'day everyone, I'm AzureBlaze, and welcome to another one of these little live-action-y video thingies. I've tried to set the camera up in a bit of a different way this time, hopefully. Less reflections, less black spots, or black squares. Hopefully. Yeah, in this video though, I wanted to sort of go over some things that I do like and I don't like about the Switch 2 after using it for a little bit now. And there's not, I'm not trying to be overly negative on the system or anything like that with this video, or overly positive even. I'm sort of simply going into literally some things that I do and don't like. Therefore I'm going to jump straight into it. The first thing I sort of want to talk about though is like carryovers from the Switch 1, things that I didn't like about the Switch 1 that have carried over. And here's the Switch 2. There it is. Yeah, with the Switch 2, there's some things that carried over from the Switch 1 that I'm not the biggest fan of. The main one being, if we take the Joy-Con off, the lack of any sort of grip around the back of the Joy-Con. That part really frustrates me. I wish there was one. I understand why. It's because when you're playing like this, the idea is you're meant to be able to put your hand around. However, I'll get into more about how comfortable it is later with some other things. However, yeah, it really does not really help its comfortableness as with the Switch 1. However, yeah, that's the main thing. However, the other carryovers are the fact that you can only do 30-second videos. I really wish you could do whatever amount of time, or at least a minimum of 10 minutes as a full length recording. Even if you had to do it by plugging an external hard drive into the dock or something like that. I don't know why we can't do more than 30 seconds. It's really, really frustrating. And then the other thing is the lack of music and themes on the Switch 2, same way that the Switch 1 has. It's only black and white and there's no music on the menu or anything like that. Yeah, they're the sort of carryovers from the Switch 1 though that I didn't really like. Moving on to the new things that I do not like. One of the things that I'm not the biggest fan of actually is the viewing angles of the Switch 2. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's to do because I've been using the OLED for the Switch 1 for such a long time now. And yeah, I don't know whether it's got anything to do with that. I simply find that some viewing angles, not that I'm going too overboard, it's simply sometimes I've noticed when I've moved away from the Switch to grab something or something like that and I look at it and it's it looks a bit funny. I don't know how to go with that. The other thing is the fact that it's an LCD over the OLED. I don't know, I kind of miss having the nice OLED personally. That's a me thing. I know it's sort of subjective because the HDR on the Switch 2 does look really nice. However, I personally do prefer an OLED screen. There's what else is the bezel size is the other thing. I wanted to look and see what other screen stuff I was going to need to talk about. Yeah, the bezel size is a lot bigger than, again, the OLEDs. I'm comparing everything to the OLED because that's the one that I have at the moment. I do have the original Switch as well, however it's not here with me. Yeah, the bezels are thick on the sides, and I sort of thought we were getting away from that as they were getting a bit closer and closer, however. Yeah, and then they're a bit thicker around the front, the top and bottom. I don't know, kind of sad. I wish the bezels were better, however, it does appear not to be the case. Yeah, and then, as I was saying before, with the Joy-Cons and stuff like that, something I've found, what I was saying about the comfortability, how do you say it? I don't even know. Holding this is not quite as comfortable as holding that, personally. I think that's more of a subjective thing, or simply how my hands are shaped or something like that, because I find this bit digs into my palms way more than they ever did on that, and I think it's because the controllers are bigger. I have to stretch up my hands a lot more to reach the top. However, yeah, I find that digs into my hand. I will be getting a glossy case, or a glossy case, a clear case or whatever soon to go around it to give it some more grip around the side. Therefore, hopefully that should help that problem. However, yeah, that is something I've found, and it makes my palms sweat a bit more, which is really strange. I don't know, that was never a problem I really had on the original. Where I have it on here is much more. And then, yeah, the main biggest problem I've been having, and it's a funny one, because most people probably will never ever think about this. And it's got to do with closing games. A lot of the time I will switch between like games like Tetris 99 and F-Zero 99 and all that sort of stuff, simply like because I feel like it and stuff like that. However, on the original Switch, the way you close the game, you simply press the home button, then you can press X and then close it. On the Switch 2, something that's been really getting to me is sometimes, not all the time, I think it's probably, I want to say about 75% of the time, or probably even more, probably about 85 to 90% of the time, if I close it, you can't simply press X straight away. You have to like press up and then X to close the software, and that's been really bugging me because I got really good at like really quickly like closing the game, like, and then switching to another game, stuff like that. As I said, I tend to like switch between some games that I do things with daily and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that is something that's been really been bugging me. That's the main thing there though. And what have I written here? I've got notes saying things, however I can't even read what the bottom one is. I don't know what I've written there. I think I was about to start writing something. I wrote prefer. I think that's what it is. Anyway, moving on to though the things that I do like. That's all I've got really. Things that I don't like. Otherwise, like the Switch is a really nice upgrade. I think the main thing that I really like is the magnetic attachment over the slidies. I much prefer the magnetic over the slidies. It simply works a lot nicer to simply go clip like that, as opposed to having to like sit here and slide it in and all that sort of thing. Because oftentimes I found, like, say you're trying to simply take the Joy-Cons off while it's in the dock, sometimes I try to pull it up and it would pull the system up a little bit and dislodge it, and then you have to like reset the system into the dock. With this, never a problem, simply pull off. And then, yeah, another thing as well, mouse mode, really fun. I like mouse mode a lot. I really like mouse mode. I haven't used it in any games yet as such, and it's not very comfortable, I'm not gonna lie. I reckon I'll probably get like some sort of thing that like goes on it and like makes it more mouse sized if I ever plan to use it. I'm mainly waiting to see if it ever gets like Mario Maker 2 gets updated to work with it or anything like that. Another thing is loading times, way better, especially in Animal Crossing. Cuts off like 5 to 10 minutes of my, well, I say it's not 10, yeah, probably about 5 minutes of my playtime per day, simply because the loading times are nowhere near as long, which is really nice. Some games as well simply run better, like Animal Crossing again. I'll talk about Animal Crossing again. Things load in a lot quicker in the world and stuff like that. I haven't come across any lag. There is a little bit of a frustration where, like, because the game hasn't been updated to take advantage of the higher resolution, it is a bit aliasy, like a bit fuzzy around the outside of things in some games, like Animal Crossing. However, yeah, other than that, like, it works really well. And then the internet is amazing on this compared to the Switch ones. I don't know what it was, at least on like my internet here for some reason. The Switch really struggled with it for some reason. I got lagged out of almost, I want to say about, with any game that I was playing that was online based, usually Yu-Gi-Oh, I want to say about 8 out of 10 times I'd lag out of a game. Like 4 out of 5 times essentially, I would lag out of a game before even starting the match. That kept happening on this one. I want to say it happens probably about 1 out of 10 to 2 out of 10 times on this one. 1 out of 5 maybe. Probably closer to 1 out of 10 times on that one, which is a lot nicer. It's nice to be able to get into games and stay in the games as well. There's a smooth eShop as well. I'm not going to go into the eShop right now, however, everything's a lot smoother. Simply runs better. It's a lot nicer. Don't have to worry about any of that frustrating lag. And then the last thing is the bigger screen. Despite the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of the bezels, the bigger screen has been a lot nicer to do things on. As I said, playing Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff, because I usually play with touch controls as opposed to the Joy-Cons. Being able to like see the whole screen a bit bigger, seeing things bigger in general. Yeah, I really do like that. However, yeah, I think that's all I've got. I'm yet to figure out what that prefer thing was that I was writing down on the new things that I don't like. However, other than that though, yeah, that is, I think, everything. At least for the moment. I'm sure more things will crop up and pop up and leave and disappear and come along and stuff like that. Yeah, other than that though, I hope everybody enjoyed this little video of me going over things I do and do not like. Thank you for watching, and I shall be back in the next one. Cheers everyone!